let's jump right into it. So, how are you guys doing in there? Are you guys recovering from your turkey coma over the weekend? Or maybe you shopped till you dropped on Black Friday or Good Weekend on, what is it, Blue Saturday or Small Business Saturday? Or today, Cyber Monday, and I think tomorrow might be Pink Tuesday. You know, they've got so many names for everything nowadays, and everything is something, especially in the holiday season when they want you to spend more money. But with Biden being our president, a lot of people's pockets and pocketbooks are hurting very sorely this year. And they're unfortunately just not able to flip the bill on a lot of the stuff that they used to be able to. We've got so many issues going on all across our country. But the number one issue for almost all Americans right now is being able to provide for themselves, their family, and just their basic needs, right? Like, this is something that we really need to have a serious conversation about, but people don't want to actually talk about. Is the economy booming and bustling? You know, I heard that guy, what's his name? He's one of the sharks on, what's the show? Shark Tank, right? He's one of the sharks, isn't he? Mr. Wonderful, whatever his name is, I forget his actual name at this time. But he was on, I believe it was CNN, and they were talking about, oh, how the economy is doing and everything's fantastic. And he said, you're right. The economy is absolutely fantastic. And I said, oh my goodness, wow. That is a very bold statement. And he said, you know why it's wonderful? Because it's wonderful everywhere else except Democrat-run states like New York and California, which have overbearing regulations and taxes up the wazoo, up the tuchus. He said it's just too much money to actually do business in these Democratic-run states anymore. So he's moved most of his business down to Florida, he said. And, you know, I support that. But more than anything, I support businesses that are local and businesses that are in New York State. And with that, I'd like to get into our number one sponsor here, which is, oh my goodness, what is going on with my microphone? So I'd like to give a shout out to Mac Remodeling and Repair. They've got some of the best trained professionals to get your basic home stuff done that you need taken care of. So give a holler to Mac Remodeling if you want a free estimate today. 585-802-0757. That's 585-802-0757. Mac Remodel and Repair. Give them a shout out because they definitely care, and they'll take care of your home project or your professional project that you need done to help improve whatever you're working on. They'll help you get the stuff that you need accomplished. That's Mac Remodel and Repair, 585-802-0757. So we've got some good businesses that are that are struggling to hold on because we've got all types of stuff going on at this time. We've got people that are creating new laws on a daily basis to make it more and more difficult for you as a business owner to actually own and operate your business. Taxes are high as all good get up in New York. But you know what? People are continuing to fight to try to make it here because New York is the place that so many call home. I was watching MSNBC night before last. Yeah, I was watching MSNBC. I also sometimes watch CNN, believe it or not. You know what station I don't watch very often? Fox. How about that? Somehow it's funny when people tell me, oh, you must watch Fox. You must watch Fox. Nah, not so much. Remember, Fox was the media company, and remember, Fox is a very large corporation, not just here, but also in many other parts of the country, even though they've sold off some of their smaller divisions worldwide. It's owned by the Murdochs. Previously, Rupert Murdoch was in charge of it, and he just recently stepped down because he's like 9 and his son is taken. But the Murdoch family and Fox actually forced mandates on everyone to get those hokey pokies. you know, the jab, the things that were causing so many people so much turmoil, you know. They forced their people to get those, or they wouldn't be able to come in and do their shows. And they actually lost quite a few number of anchors and people that were actually doing the big shows there because of that policy. It was really, really quite concerning. So when people are like, oh yeah, Fox, 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 and I'm not poo-pooing on them and their media empire or saying that they're negative or anything. I'm just saying that that's a policy that you would think that a company that considers himself to be so-called for the freedom of the American people would not force people to get those things. But we're not here to talk about that today. That's just something that happened one time, right? You know, it's not like Kathy Hochul last week just started to implement the regulations and stuff to enforce internment camps in New York State, calling them quarantine camps or whatever they're calling them these days. They're really internment camps. And we'll get into that in a second. But what I want to talk about is mixed messaging today. Mixed messaging. It comes from everywhere and it comes all at one time, doesn't it? We hear mixed messaging on the radio. We hear mixed messaging from the pulpit. Pulpit, right? Pulpit. We hear mixed messaging from the pulpit. We hear mixed messaging from our friends, family members, you know, and sometimes even your coworkers and managers at your job. It's really interesting when you actually start to sift through some of the mixed messaging that's so prevalent throughout the world right now. One of the biggest mixed messages that you get is that the government cares about you. Now, wow. While many American citizens are very divided and on the contentious topic of political party or political affiliation, frankly, me personally, that's not a big deal because I know that I am a constitutionalist, and whomever supports my values and and the Constitution of the United States of America is a person that I'm going to vote for. You know, me, myself, I consider myself a conservative futurist, but there's no party for futurists. What's a conservative futurist, Marcus? Well, a conservative futurist is a person that believes in more so traditional values, but they understand that everything that's been done in the past won't get us where we need to be in the future. So some things might need to be changed. And that's, to me, my core philosophy on what I operate. I have my set morals and values. A lot of them were instilled in me from my grandparents and from the church, which people say, oh, well, religion is man-made, religion is man-made. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But the fact of the matter is, when it comes to religion, and it's speaking specifically for myself when we talk about Christianity, Christianity itself is a religion, the only religion, okay, that preaches literally against everything that your flesh would want to do or everything that is worldly. Honestly, a big difference between Christianity and a lot of other religions in the world. Like, what people are going to legitimately craft something that they're so-called saying is a form of power and control. Well, we're finding out stuff today that's in the Bible, that was put in place in the Bible, in the Old Testament, that is actually very pertinent to today. And there aren't any mixed messages in the Bible. The Bible is very straightforward about everything. And I'm not going to make this whole thing about the Bible, but I'm talking about my personal beliefs and my frame of thought and where I come from and my background before we jump into the rest of this, because I don't want anything to get twisted. I don't want anything to get convoluted. I don't want somebody to say I said something that I didn't, or say that I propagated a notion that I didn't. Okay. I am me. I am an independent thinker, and I hope that everybody that is listening to this learns to think independently for themselves. Because what happens too often today is that people fall into groupthink in which they think exactly what everybody else thinks because that's what they're told. And we see it all over the place. We saw it happen with COVID. We saw it happen with Ukraine. We saw it happen right now with Israel and Palestine. It's really, really serious. This groupthink conceptualization is warped and whacked beyond all reasonability. We've got kids that are told in school that it's okay that you don't have to be a boy or you don't have to be a girl. You could be a squirrel. Like, and people will laugh when I say that. I'm like, you guys don't understand. This is real and this is really happening in many places in the country. But I'm in upstate New York. You say, oh, well, that's no fun. Okay, upstate. Okay, North Country. I hear you. Rochester is technically Western New York. Okay, I got you. Western New York is where. Anyway, up here in Western New York, where I am, you know, they've got schools all up and around here that are actually implementing this type of stuff. And teachers that are in the classroom teaching kids that a boy doesn't have to be a boy and a girl can be a boy. This is absolutely unacceptable because that's a mixed message. That's a mixed message. You're telling somebody that's like saying to somebody that's a baker, you're not a baker, you're a plumber. Okay, well, maybe they're good at plumbing. Maybe they can do some plumbing work, but their trade and their craftsmanship is in baking. It's not in something else. And this is one of the things that's very, very important to remember. When we have stuff like this going on in our school systems, what messaging is getting to our children? What messaging is getting to what messaging is really, really, really starting to integrate itself and worm its way through all of society? That's the questions that we have to start asking ourselves. Now, when we start asking ourselves that, we have to deal with many parts of our own self. We have to deal with our ego personally, our personal feelings, our personal standpoints, and we have to deal with our super ego, which is basically, if you're not familiar with psychology or somewhat with sociology or psychiatry, there's the ego, super ego, and the id. I'm not going to go into the id too much today, but I want to talk about the ego and the super ego. You've heard of ego, right? That's yourself, how you identify as what you are, and you as an individual, physical individual, you, right? What is you? Now, the super ego is the you beyond you. It's what sets your moral compass. It's where your values come from. That's what that is. So when you listen to what your super ego says, it's the ego behind your ego. And that's really, really what everything is all about when it boils down to, if you have to question yourself and what you truly, deeply believe are the deep-rooted principles and philosophy that you truly, truly believe in, it steps outside of regular ego and it goes to super ego. Now, for you guys, I myself stated earlier that I got most of my values from my grandparents and from Christianity, from the Bible. You know, that's where most of my stuff is derived from. So that's what would form my super ego, that and all of the hero TV shows that I used to watch, you know, coming up, you know, the G.I. Joes, Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters, and listen, I go down the line, Power Rangers and everything else, right? Like, fortunately for me, and I guess I say fortunately, because that's my set of morals and values, is the righteousness, justice, you know, fight for what's right, teamwork, camaraderie, stuff like that. Many things which are lost today. And like I said, I know for a fact that watching the shows that I did, and one of the key shows, and I put a post up on Facebook the other day, on my personal Facebook though. I said the top 3 heroes ever are Jesus, Batman, and Ash Ketchum. You'll say, well, wait. Jesus was a real person and the other two are not. Very true. Okay. But Jesus was also a hero. You know, Jesus was really the Superman of humanity. And there's no two ways about it, which is really something that we should dive deeper into on another episode or of this particular show. But he really was. He did amazing feats and he did perform miracles. He healed sicknesses. He healed the blind. He walked on water. He helped other people walk on water. That's even more amazing, you know. And he, everybody knows the story of the loaves of bread and the fish, and he fed thousands of people with that. Just a couple loaves of bread and a couple of fish. You know, that's like really beyond amazing. It really is amazing what Jesus did. And he was a hero. He is a hero. Period. End of story. We continue to learn from Jesus's teachings, and we do our best as Christians, particularly, to follow Jesus's teachings. And sometimes people say, oh, well, what would Jesus do? That's a commonality that you hear very, very often. Say, oh, what would Jesus do? And that's something to think about because we as Christians are supposed to follow the scripture and we're supposed to follow what the teachings of Jesus were. Now, something funny about that whole concept is you always hear about these people that are always like, oh, well, Jesus wouldn't want that. Jesus this, Jesus that, Jesus. Well, you're not Christian. You haven't read the Bible. You don't know what you're talking about. Jesus was a real, live, that dude. Jesus was that dude. For real, for real. Like he did a lot of amazing things. But more than that, Jesus didn't take no flack. Okay? He really didn't. He was consistently challenging those who were authority in the church. He even many times challenged the authority of local political concepts and definitely the apostles. That's a whole other story. But we're not here to talk today about Christianity, but we're talking about the consistency of a message, right? And we're talking about heroes and the base where everybody gets their morals and values from, which is the super. So we've got this gentleman as a hero, the gentleman, you know, Christ, the Lord and Savior, you know, the Son of the living God. Wow. So number two, Batman. So Batman, you know, everybody knows the story of Batman. If you don't, please go look up the basic issue of Batman. Not the creation of the character himself. You know, so Batman is the only superhero that's not a superhero. So we go from Jesus, who is a real life, really existed superhero, okay, to, and if you're Christian and you feel some type of way about me saying that, hey man, I don't know what to tell you. Jesus was that dude. And if you don't believe that, it is what it is. Okay. So now when it comes to Batman, Batman wasn't a super. Batman was a general human being that, of course, he's fictitious and Jesus was real, but this is my point here. Is the scope of the character. So Batman himself was a regular dude that just trained really hard because he got fed up with the way that the world was because he saw so much evil and corruption and the fact that it wasn't being addressed. And he said, well, I will take my whole city and put it on my back and I will protect and defend those who are not able to protect and defend themselves in my city, you know. And he's got his own code where he doesn't kill or whatever the case is. You'll say, well, Marcus, he broke that a couple of times. It depends on what world and what you're talking about, because you know there's many different storylines. But in general, that's his whole philosophy: is he doesn't kill or whatever the case is, which is definitely up for a conversation for another day. But he has his own morals and values that were instilled in him through his sense of morality when when he was growing up, very little his parents. So he had a lot of experiences after that. He trained with very serious people that were top masters of all different types of arts. Um, and he really, really, really trained his body and his mind beyond the peak that most people would ever consider that they could get to. And that is something that one would say, wow, that's really, really notable. That's strong character, and that's also something that's very admirable to look up to that type of a character, you know. So, which doesn't put them on the same level as Jesus. So that's very clear, but I'm talking about the formation of morals and values, these type of things from. So then we've got Ash Ketchum. So now we've walked in a tier. Jesus, real man, real human being who was basically essentially a superhuman. I mean, literally the direct son of the Lord. Okay, with all the powers going along with it. Then you got Batman, who's just a regular man who trained himself beyond peak. Okay. Then you've got Ash Ketchum, right? Pokemon, gotta catch them all, whatever, the undying child, the unaging child. And he's got a lot of character development if you've ever watched Pokemon. You say, oh, well, Marcus, that's for kids or whatever. Listen, I don't know what to tell you. If you don't like anime, which I don't even know that I consider Pokemon anime, I consider it a pop anime, kind of something in the vein of Dragon Ball Z or Bleach or whatever the case may be. Like there are certain animes that are just more poppy and they have their own specific feel than other animes. But good character and person to base morals and values off of. He's got, first of all, also, Pokemon references the Bible quite a few times, which is very interesting, especially when it comes from Japan. So, with that being said, Ash's whole concept was do good, right? Make sure that you're always willing to fight and protect those that are not strong enough to protect and defend themselves. Family was very important to him. But also his friends were very crucial to him. And the way that he built up his relationships, not just with his friends and people that he met, but also with his Pokemon, which essentially we consider pets, right? And that's, you'll say, oh, well, Marcus, if you like Pokemon, you're like, well, they're not pets, yeah. But not everybody watches Pokemon, so I'm giving them a concept, okay? But each of them have their own personalities and everything. They're special snowflakes. Anyway, but he really helped them develop their skills and they would train together and everything all the time. And it would build their skills and their character, but it would also build the mental fortitude and their physical skill as well. So a lot of good morals and values are set in that series as well, especially from Ash Ketchum. And we could go into other different shows and things like that. What's a good show that you can talk about? I don't. There's just so much good different shows that were really good, but unfortunately, too much nowadays. What a lot of kids watch are these ridiculous music videos with flapping your butt cheeks in the air, popping your front parts in somebody's face, and all of this and all of that, and it's just not okay. It's not okay, not at all. But more so over than that, I think that probably the worst thing is the fall off of religion. Now, and again, this is for the development of the ego and the superego, so we can get back into the mixed message. So what's happened is very clear if you sit back and you stand back and you actually look at it. So what's happened is the complete erosion of the church. When did that start to take place? It started to take place after the assassination of JFK. And Lyndon B. Johnson getting into office. So I mean, realistically, you could say it started after the assassination of multiple religious leaders in the civil rights era, but most notably Martin Luther King Jr. Now, it's funny, and I shouldn't say it's funny, but it's ironic that almost a year to the day that Martin Luther King was assassinated, Lyndon B. Johnson, that's right, King of the Democrats, Lyndon B. Johnson, okay, installed the IRS regulation that made it that all churches had to be non-profits, but it also basically convolutes the church's ability to organize politically. And what it does basically, and I'm summarizing the actual practical implementation, is it prevents them from speaking up politically. Or realistically, the better statement should be, is it prevents them from speaking up against people that are actively in political circles. And that is a very serious, dire problem, because we see today, to this point, that most churches and most leaders are not standing up the way that they should, and they most definitely are needed now more than ever. The morals, the values that would usually be imparted from the church are no longer there. The continued spiritual leadership that is definitely necessary now more than ever is just not there. It's absent because many churches and many synagogues and other places, wherever your house of worship is, how many types of them? How many types? How many ones of them? Because they're all different types. How many ones of those are actually speaking from the so-called pulpit, okay, or leadership position about the immorality of many of these laws, about the anti-scriptural doctrine of many of these laws? And I'm not getting really religious in this situation, but what I'm talking about is morals and values and where they come from and how they impart themselves on us and our value centers, which is exactly the issue with what's going on with our whole what do you call it? With our whole society today. And I guess that's me being generous, right? So we've got so many issues and so many things going on all across the world. And of course, I'm sure that you might be able to hear in my background. My phone is blowing up, bing, bang, bing, bang, boom. And I have no clue what's going on because I am on air live. I don't know why. Now my phone is going bing, bang, boom, because it was like nobody wanted to talk to me like an hour ago when I had time to talk to people. Now everybody wants to talk to me. I guess that's how it is. But but my focus is talking to you guys right now and going forth with this message. So I'd just like to remind you and thank you so much today for listening here on WRFZ 106.3 FM, Rochester Free Radio. That's WRFZ 106.3 FM, Rochester Free Radio, and listening to The Divide. Let's get back into it. So, as we continue down this path of talking about these religious leaders and stuff like that, it's very much so been an issue continuously since Lyndon B. Johnson implemented that. But then we also had Lyndon B. Johnson implement the Great Society program and the deindustrialization of America's center cities, which is where most people that were in the urban centers in the cities were actually working, where most Black men were working, because that's where all the factories and everything were. And then they pushed them outside of the city where they didn't really want Black people to work. So now it was more difficult for them to get out there. Then they weren't wanted out there. So it put a strain on the Black male to be able to provide for his family. And at the same time, with Lyndon B. Johnson's Great Society Project, and remember, this is a Democrat, and the expansion of the welfare system specifically to exclude Black males and Black families. They did not want the Black family unit together at all. So they did everything in regulation and law to keep the Black man out of the house. And many of you, if you were social workers or if you worked for as caseworkers or something, you might still remember in the 80s and the 90s, where they had it, if you had a pair of men's shoes outside your house, outside your door, that they cut you off social services. Like, this isn't something that I'm making up. This is a real thing, and these are Democrat policies. Democrats, from the king of the Democrats, Lyndon B. Johnson. You know, they say that all of these things are great, but really the majority of the policies that are implemented right now by Democrats are actually hurting the Black and brown Latino communities. They don't really care, because if they did, their policies would actually align with the impact that they are making. You know, right here in Rochester and in New York State, we've got all these anti-police laws. We've got all these politicians speaking anti-police rhetoric. We've got all of these policies allowing all of the criminals and sex offenders all back out into the community. Do you know where they go? Do you know where almost all of the criminals that are released from jail go? Back into Black communities, back into Latino communities, back into the very communities, making it more difficult for the everyday person to live their life the way that they want to, free, without concern. Well, I mean, with some concern, always have some concern, but without general concern about getting lumped upside your head walking to the mailbox, letting your child go play in the park. Families in these neighborhoods don't have these luxuries in major urban centers in New York State anymore, because the crime is so out of control due to policies by the Democrats, who have a supermajority in the state. They control the whole Senate. They control the whole Assembly. They control the whole bureaucracy in New York State. And they have the lieutenant governorship, the comptroller, and the governor. It's out of control and out of pocket what's going on right now with our government, because they tell you something in your face, and at the same time, when they're shaking your hand in the front, they're taking your wallet and stabbing you in the back at the same time. Both, all three, one time. Okay? Like, it's not cool. Like, and you know, people say, "Oh well, Marcus, why are you at the Democrats?" I'm not. I'm not at the Democrats. I'm at their policies. Let's be clear. Because I got stuff to say about Republicans too, but we don't live in a Republican-run state. I am not able to say anything about the Republicans in New York State because the Republicans don't have any power. I live in Rochester, New York, in the city of Rochester. For 50 years, there hasn't been one Democrat there hasn't been one Republican elected to any office. All of it's been Democrats. Every single school board member, every city court judge, all of it's been Democrats. Everyone on city council, everyone in the mayor's office, all of it's been Democrats. So in 50 years, all we have done as Black people, I am a Black male who grew up in the city of Rochester, okay? I'm Black and Native American. I am a Black male who lives in Rochester, okay? And all I've seen my whole life is our city, specifically Black and Latino neighborhoods, get run into the ground and get the neighborhood sold out from underneath them. All of the businesses are forced to close because of terrible policies that have all been implemented directly by Democrats. Nobody else but Democrats. We have had whole government, local, we're talking local government. I'm talking county level and I'm talking city level, more so city level than the county level, which is a whole separate conversation because I got something to say about the county too. Okay. But we've got whole departments, bro, whole arms, right? Whole arms of the local government bureaucracy that have nothing to show for all of the money that they're supposed to be helping in the community. We had my previous what was it? City council member for my quadrant. What's his name? Adam McFadden, right? We had Adam McFadden. He stole all that money from the poor people that was supposed to be for housing for the poor people, and then had the daggone nerve not to have nothing to show for it. Now, I'm pretty American, right? So being an American, I expect a little bit of corruption in my government, somewhat, maybe probably more than a little bit of corruption, right? Because we're talking about the American government. But regardless, I expect you to have something to show for it. You ain't got nothing to show for it, bro. And you took all the money from the homeless people and the poor people that needed homes. not so much the homeless people, but more so the low-income people that needed housing, because he's working with Quad A and the Rochester Housing Authority and all of that missing money there with him and his boy. What's that guy's name? Oh my goodness, I'm not able to remember his name right now. But the fact of the matter is this: that was my city council person, right? And that's just one that's just one instance of the massive corruption. And I'm not even talking about the corruption so much, right? Let me be clear, because I like my brain inside my skull and my blood inside my body. So it's rare that you'll ever hear me talk about government corruption, even though it's prolific. But you will hear me talking about the way that the government is spending and using our money, and especially the money that's supposed to be used for specific purposes. Okay? Because it's serious, it's real. Like we had another, and I'm not going to mention the department, but they're no longer a specific department attached to the city. They're now their own entity that was completely spending away all of their budget on high cost salaries and having nothing to produce for what they're supposed to be producing. Okay? And thankfully that was taken over by a new company and under the leadership of a new gentleman who I respect quite a bit. Big ups. You know who you are. Which is, again, a message for another radio show. That's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the mixed messaging. But what I'm talking about right now is I'm talking about the financing that's supposed to be going to the community that doesn't ever hit the community. That is exactly why the people in Black and Latino communities are like, the government isn't doing anything for me. They're horrible. But the only reason why they keep voting Democrat is because they feel that they have to. And they've been told by the Democrats so long that the Republicans are the terrible people, the Republicans are the terrible people. But like I said, for 50 years, there hasn't been one Republican to do anything. Then we've got so many people that are so mad at Donald Trump. Oh boy, right? How could he possibly bring up Donald Trump, right? And Trump derangement syndrome, which is real. Like people really are completely, you mentioned Donald Trump, and their head starts spinning and smoke starts coming out of their ears, you know, and their eyes bug out. Like it's insane. Like, okay, you didn't like the guy. I get you. You don't have to vote for the guy if you don't like him, but why don't you like him? You know, and usually what it goes into is it's something to do with him personally. They personally don't like him. And I say, okay, fair enough. You know, well, what about his policies? Don't you like? Oh, I don't like that. Well, actually, that's not a policy that he did. Oh, I don't like this. You don't like the name of the policy, or you don't like the impact of the policy? Oh, I don't like the name of the policy and what it's doing because it does this, this, and that. But that's not what the policy actually does. You know? So one of the big issues, and I know a lot of Trump fans are listening to this, and I know a lot of Team Marcus people are listening to this that like Trump too. Like, I'm not here to smash on Trump, but I'm here to point something out. Like, Donald Trump is a billionaire, right? Like, he's always been rich. He's been rich since being rich, been rich. Okay? Like, he doesn't know what it is to be an everyday person, which is crazy because when you look at the actual policies that he had, because they were pro-business and they were pro-business competition and they were to cut regulations and stuff like that, the large, vast majority of the policies that were instituted under that administration were actually beneficial for Black and Brown and Latino communities. Now, I'm not going to talk about white communities. I don't live in a white community. I don't live in a white community. There are some, I live in a mixed neighborhood, which would be considered predominantly Black and largely socioeconomically challenged or underserved. Okay. So that's where I live. You understand what I'm saying? So I couldn't tell you about the white neighborhoods, but if you listen to a large portion of white people during the time that he was in office, they thought he was the bee's knees and the policies were really good. Then you got some people that just hated him off of his personality. But now we've got Joe Biden saying that he's done all of these great things. And again, this is about the mixed messaging thing. And now we got Joe Biden as president that says all of these great things, Kamala Harris too. And I can tell you one thing that they've done that's been positive, that's impacted my life or my community. All I've seen is all of the costs for literally everything that you need to pay for or could possibly buy go up. Everything is up. Food is up. Gas and electric is up. Gas for your car is up. Car prices is up. House prices is up. Mortgage prices is up. Rent prices is up. Everything is up. Everything is up, and not in a good way. You know, the only thing that's not up under this administration is the majority of everyday people's bank accounts, the majority of everyday people's savings, the majority of everyday people's 401ks and other retirement assets. Why? Because the policies and regulations that have been instituted under this administration go counter to specifically what they say that they are supposed to be doing. And that, my friends, is a very, very, very serious thing. And I want to thank you right now. You're listening to WRFZ, Rochester Free Radio, 106.3 FM. And this is The Divide with Marcus C. Williams hosting. Now, let's really, really, really get ready to get into the message. But I'd like to give another shout out to Mac Remodeling and Repair. Definitely, if you need something fixed, check them out. You can call 585-802-0757 for a free estimate and for a fast return call. So if you guys would like to help me out or pitch out for me, you know, you can always send me something on Cash App to help me do what I do. You know, $ MW Real, the number one. That's $ MW Real, the number one. This is the digit one. On Cash App, if you want to drop me something, or you can go to givesendgo.com/MCW. That's givesendgo.com/MCW, and you can donate to me there so that I can keep on talking about the things that I need to, the important policy issues, the important things going on in the world. I can keep getting out there into the world and doing the activities that are actually impactful and helping and encouraging people to take more action in their community and take charge of what's going on in our neighborhoods and our political system. It's so desperately needed. So if you can assist me in any way, please. If you got Cash App, drop me a couple of bucks. $ MW Real, the number one. That's the digit one. Or go to givesendgo.com/MCW. All right, so let's get back into it. Real quick, we're going to check these beeps and bloops that are all going off on my phone and see if any of it's any importance to the show. Let's check it out. Absolutely not. Absolutely none of the messages are pertinent to the show at all. Of course, you know, when you're in the middle of doing something important, everybody wants to come at you with something that's not important. But that's the way things go. Let's jump right back into it. Mixed signals. Oh man, boy, howdy. Let's jump into this and burn down. So, you guys know everything that's going on with Palestine and Israel right now, right? No, not really, right? Because most people don't. Let's be honest. Most people just figured out that Palestine exists or didn't exist or does exist, sort of existed. I don't even know how to use terminology that best describe what the situation is with the conceptualization, and I say conceptualization, of Palestine, what it is. Because, I'm not even going to get into it too deep, but I'm going to keep it surface level because I need to talk about this situation. So the war between Israel and the Arabs there that are Muslims that identify, and I'm using that term loosely, identify by most people's standards nowadays. See, this is the conceptualization that they're putting on those, not necessarily that they identify as, but the Palestinians, and I use quote fingers on that, right? Because the Jews that were in what is now Israel, okay, previous to the state of Israel being formed, were considered Palestine from World War I to right after World War II, when Israel as a nation state was founded. But that's a whole separate conversation that we can't really have a fair conversation about. We can't really have a fair conversation about the fact that the history of the area wouldn't really be called Palestine, but that's a whole nother conversation. We can't talk about that either, you know. But hey, it is what it is. So now we've got all of these crazy pro-Palestinian people. Oh, Marcus, why did you call them crazy pro-Palestinian people? Did you see them? Did you see them ripping down America flags? Did you see them going out there vandalizing our statues? Okay. Do you see that? Do you see that? We don't even have anything going on over there. We're over there defending some ships. We're over there in Syria striking against the same people we've been striking against for like the last 10, 15 years. Okay? We ain't got nothing going on in Israel. We ain't got nothing going on in Gaza. We ain't got nothing going on over there. And they're like, oh, well, the United States needs to do something. This is coming from the same people that say that the United States should not be the world's police. But when it's convenient, you want to give the government more authority and more power. You make that make sense to me. All I want is consistency. I'm sick of these mixed messages, bro. I'm sick of these mixed messages. Okay? And let me just take 2 seconds so everybody feels everything's even right now. Mixed messages. What's her face? What's that lady? Man, I am even able to remember her name. That's how much I forget. I don't really care for her. Dick Cheney's daughter. That one. She always about the mixed messages. I'm Republican. I'm Republican. No, you're not. Mixed messages. Or Mitt Romney. Ooh, he's a terrible monster. Okay, and he doesn't do the Church of Latter-day Saints any favors as far as people thinking bad on them because he made them look terrible. Ooh, boy, howdy. He got mixed messages too. So now that I've covered those mixed messages, we're going to get back into the Palestine thing. So these pro-Palestinian Liberation Front people went into the Macy's Day Parade and the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and they poured fake blood all over themselves and blocked up the parade. And they're like, Palestine liberation and planet liberation. What in the flying monkeys uncles does Palestine and eco-justice, or for as far as I'm concerned, eco-terrorism, which they're pushing, okay, have to do with each other? Nothing. You think the people in Palestine give a flying monkey's uncle over whether somebody's using oil or coal? They wish that they had oil and coal. You're crazy. They don't care about no solar panels, no wind panels. They over there begging for some trucks of oil right now. Now that they got this little, what do you call it? What's it called? Not a ceasefire. I don't know what to call it. I forget what they're calling it. It's not a ceasefire, not an armistice. I don't know. Temporary pause. There we go. That's what they're calling it. A pause over there. They're trying to get in tanks of oil. They're not trying to get in tanks of solar panels. You understand what I'm saying? The two causes are not equal. Mixed messages. What is going on here? What is wrong with these wackadoos? Okay, you'll say, Marcus, that is unjustly harsh. Is it? Is it really unjustly harsh? It definitely, most assuredly, is not. These crazy cuckoos were out inside of the Natural History Museum waving Palestinian flags, talking about the Natural History Museum in New York City. The Natural History Museum is a white supremacist organization. What in the flying monkeys uncles does that have to do with Gaza and what's going on with them warring with Israel, which they have been doing for 77 years? That's 3 times how old I am, plus some. 3 times how old I am, plus some. That's how long they've been at war. That's how it's absolutely out of control. It's absolutely out of control. You're talking about the Museum of Natural History is white supremacist, and that's you're trying to align that cause with being pro-Palestine? What the conceptualizations that are warped beyond all recognition is going on in this place. What is happening? You know, speaking about insanity, you got all of this crazy stuff going on, and they just tore down the statue of Thomas Jefferson. Now this wasn't the crazy pro-Palestinian. Let me be very clear. This was the city themselves. They took down New York City. They took down the statue of Thomas Jefferson in the city hall because they said, "Oh, he used to own slaves, whatever, whatever. He was a bad man. We're going to erase all of the history in your country so you don't know what happened with your founders, and all of your founders were racist. So we've got to get rid of all of the books and all of the tomes that they wrote and all of the pamphlets and everything, because all of them were white racist slave owners, and we can't have you learning anything from them because they were terrible people and you might get the same ideas that they had." Ooh. Are we being serious and real right now? Are we being real right now? Now let's look at this for what it is, honestly, and let's be truthful and clear. What we are seeing is the erasure of our history as a country. And it's all intentional for multiple reasons. One, it's to make sure that we don't have a sense of national identity. Two, it's so that they can make sure that we do not understand the concept of our founding and the philosophies that they were preaching back then, because they know that if we really understood what happened with the American Revolution, why it happened, and we really followed all of the old documents and the reasons as to why, and we read things like Thomas Paine and Samuel Adams and all of these different people and stuff like that, they know that we'd be like, oh shoot, our government is exactly what we were warned about. Our government is now in the exact same shape, even worse than the government of the king at the time, that they are now within well reason to try to basically replace the whole government. That's why we went to war in the first place. We went to the Revolutionary War, got started over, what was it, 3% taxes? 3% taxes. 3% taxes. We're paying the lowest taxes in the empire, 3%. And we went to war over 3%. And right now, when you get your paycheck, the government is taking over 40% of your paycheck. Okay? 10, 15 times more than what we went to war for. Okay? To declare our independence as a nation. We didn't even used to have, what do you call it? Basically, what's it, when you pay the money from your check, what's it called? You know what I'm talking about. Income tax. Okay? You didn't used to have income tax. You used to have bonds that you used to pay into, that you used to buy from the government, where the government would basically surety bonds. Say, oh, we love the government. We think that things are going to go in the government's favor. We promise that we'll give you this money, and you promise that you'll give us X money back. And that's how we used to fund different projects and stuff like that, until they established the Federal Reserve and stuff like that right around the time of the Titanic crash, which we're not getting into that today. We're not doing that today. But I just wanted to point that out, that we didn't used to pay income tax. We didn't used to pay property tax. But this is a whole nother crazy concept, right? Because now you never actually own anything in America, hardly ever, when it comes to property, assuredly so. And what do they want by 2030? They want you to own nothing and be happy. Who's going to be happy? Nobody's going to be happy but the elites that are in power. But back to what I was saying about our actual founding fathers and stuff like that. And I'm going to run through a whole bunch of things real quick because I want to make sure that I kind of squeeze them all in. So here's the issue. As they continue to erase our founding fathers and stuff, they're going to do different things, and they're going to try to rewrite the Constitution. They're going to rewrite all of the pamphlets and documents from our founding fathers and really just throw them away. This is kind of the same thing that we saw happen a few years ago when they got rid of all of Mr. Mustachio and the Red Armbands people's audios, all off of all of the different streaming services and stuff like that on YouTube and on the internet and stuff like that, because they don't want you to know how much what the Democrats in office right now and the socialists are saying that sound exactly like what Mr. Mustachio and the Red Armband Brigade used to do. They don't know. They don't want you to know. They don't want you to know. It's exactly the same thing. They'll say, oh, well, it's not the same as what he said. listen, let's be very clear. They were the National Socialist Workers Party. That's what they were. That's what it stands for. That's what their name stands for. And because not only are we on the radio right now, but we're also streaming this, and I don't want to have any issue with them because you say certain things, they try to flag you or whatever the case is. Blah. I got stuff to say about that, about free speech for another episode. But it's real serious. They get rid of all of this stuff because they don't want you to see the corollaries, right? Good, bad, or indifferent. It doesn't matter. They don't want you to see what's going on. And more so, they're trying to erase our history as a nation. You think that there's a problem with the Chiefs being the Chiefs for the Rochester, for the what do you call them, the Washington Commanders now, because they got rid of the Chiefs? It's insane, which is a whole nother crazy thing. Now they've just stripped all, and in New York State, we had all of these different mascots that were proud Native Americans, and they like stripped all of the Native Americans off of all of the sports scene. Kathy Hochul passed that bill a couple weeks ago. Now we can't have any of that. Why? These are the serious questions that we need to be having ourselves. They snatched Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben, and the cream of wheat guy off of their boxes. So now we have no Black representation on any foodstuffs. So after that, people like Terrence K. Williams and stuff like that came out with some of their own stuff to try to put Black people back on boxes because they got rid of them. They're trying to erase us. They're trying to erase our history and our culture. Now, but the message is that, oh, they were bad, so we got to get rid of it, or this makes us look bad is what it is, really. So we got to get rid of it. It's all a play. You're being played. You're being played. So let's get down to what's going on with these pro-Palestinian people and how they're mucking up everything over the weekend. They sat in front of the Brooklyn Bridge, like a whole lot of them, and they shut down the whole Brooklyn Bridge, just completely giving up. You already know how the traffic is in New York City. If you don't, it's terrible. Horrible. Like, it's absolutely horrible. Like, that's how bad it is in New York City. So now these people have shut down the whole bridge. Okay? It's insane. Absolutely insane. And you're inconveniencing all of these people in New York who are just trying to provide for their families, go travel their regular routes and do what they can because of what? Palestine? Regular Americans have nothing to do with being able to do something with Palestine. If you really wanted to do something, go take yourself in a plane, go get off in Egypt or get off in Jordan and go fight over there if you really feel so raw about it. But you don't. You don't. You don't feel that raw. You don't feel compelled to actually do that. Of course not. Or, hey, here's another wackadoo concept, right? How about you actually go to Israel? Perish the thought. How about you go to Qatar? How about you go to the UAE, where all of these people are that are actually in leadership that are behind both Israel and the Hamas people in Gaza? Huh? How about you go over there and actually talk to the people, inconvenience the actual people that have something to do with it, and get the hell out of my country? No offense, all practicality. I mean, no offense, and I mean all practicality. What are you doing? Why are you interfering with the lives of the people here? All you are doing is turning the people here against Palestine. That's all you're doing. You are doing a disservice to your cause, alleged cause, right? Because they're combining it with feminism and alphabetism and it's queers for Palestine, even though they don't like you in Palestine or Gaza or whatever you want to call them. They don't like you. They would pop you on sight, okay? They would relieve your body of its soul ASAP, okay? They don't play those games over there. Are you being real with yourself? We support them. Nose rings, more piercings in your face than Wolverine's got metal in his body. Are you serious? We support them. They don't support you. They don't want nothing to do with you. Y'all outside your mind. Y'all outside of reality. You know, they got the trans people for Palestine. Are you serious, bro? Do you know what they would do to you over there? Like it would be a blessing for them to relieve your soul from your body. Lord knows what the horrible stuff that they would do to you. Are you serious? Are you being real right now? And this is the problem. And all it's doing is turning regular, everyday American citizens against them. All it's doing is making people that are somewhat leaning in one direction completely even further going separate from where you are standing. They don't even want to hear the argument of, oh, we should stop it, what's going on over there, because most people, honestly, they're like, oh yeah, it's a war. Maybe we should stop war. Yeah, war is not good. People dying, that's not good. You know, that's something everybody can agree on. Oh yeah, it's stuff going on that's bad over there. Oh, America's funding foreign wars and they can't actually do anything for the American homeless or the vets that are in need of assistance and stuff like that, and families struggling to make ends meet. They won't do anything about that, but they can fund foreign wars. Oh yeah, no, I don't want that. Of course, but that'd be a real legitimate regular conversation that you'd have to be able to have with people that nobody actually wants to have, because if they had it, it would be too real. They don't really care. This is all a plot, a plan from the elites, the people that are really in power behind everything, okay, to divide America more and more and keep us from looking at what's actually happening. Okay, they in Vermont the other day, I guess, and I don't know why these cats were there. I got so many questions. In Vermont, Bernie Sanders, Bernie Sanders. In Vermont, where the king Bernie Sanders is from, okay, they apparently, and this is and allegedly, right? Because I only have a couple of stories, news articles that can corroborate this, and you know you can't trust the media for a living nothing. So apparently three Palestinian college students from Harvard and Brown, three Palestinians from Harvard and Brown. You mean three leftist liberals, right? Far left, right? We're not even talking regular liberals. So if any liberals listening, I apologize if you feel insulted. So three far left individuals from really, really high-end Ivy League colleges. There's so many questions there. There's so many questions there, but we'll keep them. So allegedly, three of them were shot. Okay. Now, I don't know why they were shot, but they were shot. And the concept of what the articles are putting out is it's because they were Palestinian and they were wearing headscarves and stuff like that. Now, anybody that's older than me or anything might remember 9/11 when anybody with a hijab on or with a turban looked like they were a threat. And even if you saw them, it was a threat of anybody that was a Muslim. And we even recently, not too long ago, in Canada, had some sheiks that were attacked because they thought that they were Muslim. Sheiks are not Muslim. They're like from what's the province in what's the province in India? I don't know. But they're largely from one province in India. I want to say it's Punjab, but I might be incorrect. I'm pretty sure it's Punjab. But it's neither here nor there. But they were attacked because people thought that they were Muslims, and that's a whole nother conversation because these are what we identify as common terrorists are people from that area. And really, what the case is yeah, a lot of them are terrorists from that area because they're mad because we've been blowing them up since before I was born, blowing them up. We've been blowing up the Middle East for the last, like 40, 50 years almost. You know, like they're terrorists. Of course they're terrorists over there because they don't like America. Why would you like America? They've been bombing you for 50 years. You know, but now they want to let all of these Palestinian refugees over here to the U.S. Are you outside your mind? Are you outside of your mind? Look at these crazy people that we have that are American citizens acting and doing all this crazy insanity that are 5 seconds from being radicalized. Many of them even got the nerve to walk out there with what you call it, the Taliban flags and stuff like that. Man, listen, these people are openly declaring war on the United States of America inside the territory of the United States of America. And the police and the military and the political officials ain't got no type of huevos to do anything about anything when they need to be doing something about a lot of this. But we already know that if it was somebody that was standing up for America, like they lock up all of the New Yorkers in New York City for protesting against the illegal aliens that are taking away all the resources in a city that if you've ever been to New York City, you know that there's some real serious poverty and prices are high as good all get up. Okay? And people are struggling. But we can't talk about that, right? We can't talk about how the police are arresting them, but they won't arrest these crackpots that are snatching down American flag, vandalizing monuments, and causing disruptions to the general population's way of life. We can't talk about that. Nobody will do anything about that. It's insane. It's insane. Mixed messages, corruption of our government. So it's just, what I'm saying is, people are being turned against these pro-Palestinian people, and vicariously, literally everybody from the Middle East. But the thing about the Palestinian refugees, which are nowhere in sight yet, but Lord knows, is that none of the other Muslim countries over there want them. None of them. Literally, every single majority Muslim nation in the world has denied accepting any of them. If they don't want them, if the Muslims don't want the Palestinians and they're Muslim, we should not be taking them. Hello? 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 Are we awake in this country? What's really going on? So, listen, it just continues. It gets worse, and I could go on. But I want to talk about a couple of other things. I want to talk about some of the crazy stuff that's going on with the rest of the illegal immigrants and immigrants in Europe. So Ireland, if you guys have been paying attention, some crazy upheaval has been going on over there. There was and there's a big difference between the people over there, because they're actual immigrants in Europe. They've been allowed entry. They've got so many people that they let in and stuff like that. But in America, they're illegal aliens. It's completely different. So, but over there, apparently one from Algeria stabbed a husband and a wife and their 3 children, okay, at a primary school. And then Ireland people went mad. Like, they were mad as all good get up. So they started burning down the immigrant intakes centers and the hotels that they thought they were in and everything. And there was big upheaval and stuff over there. And now the government is talking about, oh, this is because of race hate and stuff like that. And we've got to scuttle free speech and everything. And I'm like, that's terrifying. They're getting rid of free speech in Ireland. That's absolutely crazy. So just to stop it from happening more, if they don't want the people in their country because they believe that it's taking away from their way of life and erasing their culture, which they're right about, it's happened in America. Where is America culture anymore? Where is it? That's a whole nother conversation. Most people don't even speak the language. Well, Marcus, America doesn't have a national language. Yeah, it does. It's American English. But it doesn't. But it does. But it does. And if it's not on paper, it should be. And if you come to America and you don't want to assimilate, that is a serious issue. And that's what they're having happen in places like France and Ireland. And the Irish aren't having it. They're up in arms. They're literally up in arms. They're setting stuff on fire, burning stuff down. And now the Garda are over there, which are the police, are over there arresting regular everyday citizens because they're more concerned about the migrants over there, which they could simply save everything and everybody and prevent any other further issues by talking about starting to expel them out of the country or send them back where they came from, which isn't really a bad thing, right? Which is worth a whole nother conversation. Like, oh, well, we need to help those people. Do we? Do we, or do they have their own countries to help themselves? Let me ask you a question. If America was to fall tomorrow, what country is taking Americans? Canada already told us they don't want us. Remember when Trump got to be president, they shut down the whole border? Not because they were concerned with illegal aliens. They were concerned with illegal Americans going over there. You remember that? Like, Mexico closed their border with us before that. Like, they don't want us either. And they're trying to kick Americans out of Mexico right now, and they're stealing their money out of their bank accounts. Like, the banks, like, not criminals, like the banks are taking Americans' money out of Mexican bank accounts because they're increasing the cost of living and they're destroying apparently the quality of life in Mexico because they're making the prices increase for everybody down there. But we can't talk about that. Perish of thought. Then we go to France and we go to Serapul. If I'm saying that wrong, you guys let me know. So there was this dance that they had in Serapul. It was like 300 youth that were at, like, they had like a main hall, and it was a dance it was a ball. They called it a ball. Now, I don't know if it's a ball in our traditional sense of what we think a ball is, but a dance. Let's just say it, whatever. But it was a ball that was put on by the town. The actual town, the elected officials in the town, they have like community board that puts the things together. This is what did it. So, and then I forget off the top of my head, and I don't want to get the number wrong, but like three people, three migrants, or not migrants, excuse me, immigrants of African descent went in there and they started stabbing up everybody. And this one guy, his name was Thomas, was stabbed to death there. Apparently, he was stabbed in the stomach, the chest, and the throat. And he just bled out right there. And three other people were injured as well. And the guy that was there, that was the bouncer, got his fingers cut off. It's insane what's going on over there. It's insane. Makes you want to spit. And it's not just there, it's all over Europe. Like I just said, what happened in Ireland, but there were some other things that happened in France. I don't have enough time to go over them today. But now the people in France are all up in arms, and they're trying to take vigilante action against these people. And they were marching over to one of these little, I guess you call them township areas, I guess districts. I don't know what you call them over there. Maybe Bolaños or whatever you call them over there in France, where a lot of them live, and they were going to go get some vigilante justice. Because that's crazy. You just run up into somebody's party and you just start randomly cutting up people. Like, and according to the people there, like they were legit just stabbing up random people, right? Like that's crazy to me. That's crazy to me. And they tell you, oh well, you shouldn't be concerned about what's going on here. You shouldn't be concerned about your culture getting erased. But everything that we see, and I bring this back to America stateside, is the erasure of our history, of our culture, of our way of life. Now let's take it back over to France. And like, this is crazy, right? So, okay, like I told you, I'm Black. I identify as a Black man, and I'm of American Indian descent, okay, or Native American if you prefer, but the proper term by American legal people is American Indian, okay, which is a whole nother conversation for another show. But back to France. So there was this called, I want to say, my French is not too good. Nuas Tutes. I'm making up words at this point. Noustoutes. Okay. And it's supposed to be like a women's anti-violence rally or whatever the case is. But they've got their whole other own issues over there going on right now with all of these Muslims that are migrating to the country, which is crazy out of control. Not just from Africa, but from the Middle East as well. And it's bananas. And the Muslims are actually under attack too by the government because they don't want them to be able to homeschool their children, which is a whole nother separate conversation. And it shows you how the government is really playing all sides right here to really deteriorate the power of the independent electorate and the independent people in our various nations that are in the West. America, number one, being the number one, but also France, Ireland, Great Britain, and pretty much everywhere else. We already know what's going on in Germany, the Netherlands, and many other countries. Spain, God, I say companies, jeez, that's another conversation. And many other countries, including Spain, which just legitimately just had a whole coup, and the socialists took over the country. That's another conversation for another day. But anyway, they had this march there that's supposed to be for that. And they had these people there with these signs. And I'm going to read you the translation of some of what these signs say because, you know, like I said, my French is not so bueno. So my pronunciation is, you're like, Marcus, that was definitely Spanish, I know. So my pronunciation wouldn't be that good. So I'm going to read you what some of these signs said. Liberate the sexuality of the children. Make France less white. And I can't, the translation is poor, and I don't know how to translate it, but it wasn't really make France less white, but that was what they were saying. But it said it was basically like a picture of mayonnaise, a jar of mayonnaise. It was saying make France less white by comparing France to mayonnaise. It's a whole thing. And then it said no white people, and then they had other signs there, down with cops. And then they had other signs there that are down with white reproduction. And then they had, it's just crazy. Like these were signs that were there at this particular rally. Now, I've been told that the people with these signs were allegedly trolling these particular groups, but the organizers of these rallies didn't say anything or anything as if to say that they supported these type of causes or allow them. And it goes back to what I was saying about the so-called pro-Palestinian Liberation Front in America, where they're just co-opting all of these things. They're co-opting eco justice, racial equality, and Black Lives Matter, and all of this nonsense, and just putting it together in some amalgamation of hideous monstrosity, anti-American insanity. And it's really, really very problematic. It's aggressively problematic, and we need to identify these things. But to go back to talking about these signs, now I need to talk about these signs. And again, I told you my ethnicity, and my patronage. But I really want to point out the fact that there is a subculture going on out there that they are really trying to encourage interbreeding, which I am not the biggest on, and I'll tell you why. So, well, Marcus, how can you say something like that on the radio? I said what I said. The American Black, I identify as American Black because most Blacks that are considered Black by non-Blacks are not Black. Because when you say Black, it implies Black American, Black of slave origin or of American Indian origin. Okay, that's what that means when you say that. But if you see people from Jamaica or Haiti, or especially the Dominican, which is a running joke right now online, about, because the Dominicans always been like, I'm not Black. But it's real. Like, they're not Black because Black is an American thing, and they don't associate with American Blacks. But here's the deal: with the continued extinguishment of Black lives through abortion and encouraging people to get abortions, the Black population is not having enough children in America to sustain our actual people. In another 3 generations, Black people will be extinct in America. Black Americans will be extinct. Hear me now. Not Black. This is all you think is all Blacks, like the Africans are Black, they're not. Black looking people that are not Black American are Black, they're not. Okay. It's a conversation that I had with somebody else the other day that was really spouting some stuff that seemed like they were feds, or they were white supremacists, right? Like, I don't think they were a real white supremacist. I think that they were the feds, right? Trying to encourage some people to some levels of actions and to promote some dissension and division in our country. But they had made this comment, and I was explaining to them that there are no more white Americans left. Like, white Americans are pretty much extinct. All the Americans that we have now are white identified. Because if you look at it, they used to have Italian Americans, they got German Americans, Dutch Americans, whatever American. But white Americans were white Americans pre-Civil War. Pre-Revolutionary War. That's how they identify. Almost all of them are extinct. They've been bred out. And now they're trying to breed out everybody else. They're trying to breed out all the Black people by promoting miscegenation. Miscegenation is interracial breeding. But on top of that, they're trying to, not only are they trying to breed out Black people as an ethnicity and a race in America, and like I said, I've made the distinction between what I'm talking about when I say Black, but they're also trying to breed out white people. And it's gone from actual white people, like white Americans, to the concept of white people being everybody will be some sort of mulatto, right? Some sort of a mix. In the next couple of generations, everybody's going to be brown, except maybe the aristocracy, which is left. Which I honestly is not the biggest issue to me, right? That's not the problem that I have with it. The problem I have with it is the loss of historical identity the loss of cultural identity as a nation. Let me be clear, cultural identity as a nation, okay? Because they're importing all of these so-called black and brown and Latino and Asian people from all of these other countries that know nothing about American culture, American society, or American history. And at the same time, they're erasing all of our Native American history. They're erasing all of our Black history, and mostly in reflection to positive advancements in society and things that we've put into society that are good. They're erasing all of our history of our founding fathers. You understand what I'm saying? And so we have nothing as Americans. We have nothing. They are destroying our American culture. Whites, Native Americans, American Indian, however you prefer, Black Americans, we're all being erased. We're all being erased. Our culture is completely being destroyed. And you'll say, well, Marcus, I want to talk a second more about how you said that there are no more white Americans left when you were talking to that guy that was really a racist. So I was explaining to him about when I was born, because I'm not that old, but previous to that, and there's still different things you'll still see people identify as this. Like, oh, well, I'm Italian. Oh, I'm German. Even in like the Italian thing, you got you're Italian, you're Sicilian, right? And that's how they identify themselves in America. They may be white presenting, right? Let me take a line from the left. They may be white presenting, but they identify as Italian. They identify as Sicilian. They identify as whatever, Dutch, French, whatever. You understand what I'm saying? And this was really up until like the 80s, where we really start to see a little bit of a change starting to come forth. And then everybody was just white all the time. Now, I didn't live through the 70s, and I bet you that has something to do with the hippies and Vietnam and all of that nonsense. And again, Lyndon B. Johnson. But there is no more specifically American whites as we would think in the traditional sense. So now it's just an amalgamation of Euro ethnic Americans that all are considered to be white. So I kind of shut him up. He didn't really like that conversation because that is valid. That's valid because we had discrimination against the Irish when they came here. We had discrimination against the Italians when they came here. Like people forget that we had discrimination against the Irish and the Italians when they came over. People forget that. But that's neither here nor there. But the larger concept is American culture as a whole. Black, white, American Indian, all of it's being erased. All of our history is being erased for this whole concept of diversity, equity, and inclusion, when really all that it means is the erasure of your individual identity historically. And you will now be part of this new conglomeration, which involves groupthink, and you can't be your own person. You can't have your own identity. You must identify the way the masses are supposed to identify, and you must accept the specific narrative that the government is putting out there. It's absolutely, absolutely insane. And I want to talk about two more things real quick before we get off here. Egypt has banned the hijab, which is like the hijab, the headscarf, but it's got the whole face covering on it. So Egypt just banned that in schools, and people are losing their whole minds over there in Egypt because they're like, you can't tell women what to do and what to wear on their bodies. It's insane, right? Like it's madness. But it's funny because this is exactly what it is. It's the complete, and it's happening in Muslim countries too, where they're eroding their morals and their values and the things that set their morals and their values traditionally, because they want to erase them. Because the more watered down that they are, the more easily they are to be replaced, and the more people are led to debauchery and are led to not be able to think for themselves and identify for themselves and be reasonable, independent, free thinkers. They don't want that. They want everybody to not know who they are. They want everybody to have no sense of self or origin or anything. They just want everybody to be one big blob that's easily malleable by the elites that are in power. And it's a very serious issue. And we saw it happen in America. That's how we see all of these crazy people out there that are all now pro-Palestinian, pro-Greenie, pro-Ukraine, pro-socialism, pro-nonsense all over. It's a very serious problem. And one of the biggest issues is our educational system is taking such a large part in this, but that's a conversation for another. So I want to once again thank you for listening and to The Divide, and I'm Marcus C. Williams here hosting. If you'd like to actually pitch in and help me keep stuff going and actually do a lot of the work that I do out in the community, if you got Cash App, definitely Cash App me a couple bucks. $ MW Real, the number 1, that's the physical digit 1. That's $ MW Real, the number 1, that's the physical digit 1. Or you can go to GiveSendGo /MCW. That's GiveSendGo /MCW, and you can donate there too. And I really appreciate you guys listening today. I want to give one last shout out to one of our sponsors, Mac Remodeling and Repair. Check them out, and we appreciate them over there. They do some great work. So if you'd like an estimate, definitely give them a holler, because they'll definitely take the best care of you that's possible. 585-802-0757. Thank you for listening to The Divide on WRFZ 106.3 Rochester Free Radio. We will catch you next week. You know where we are. 2:30 Mondays, 2:30 to 4. Catch you later. You guys be blessed, be well, stand up, speak up, and don't shut up. Nice sweater. Thank you kindly. All right, I think everything worked today.
Oh, great. Couldn't ask for more,
That's right.
except for to have Thanksgiving dinner.